Okay, I'm so sorry for the late response. I finally calmed down enough not to scream and cry, but this one day brought everything into the forefront. And it made me think. And I want to explain why I believe my oldest Nazi was SA'd by his father. So let's talk about that day, and then I'll talk about the experience before. Last year, in 2024, between the end of the month of May and June 1st, because we were helping my dad move, my previous partner had gone off to drop stuff off, and I was stuck with my baby daddy. I told him, you need to be a dad. Go change your son's diaper because he freshly, pooped, and I didn't want him sitting in, and I was breastfeeding my youngest. He took too long, and I asked him, why did it take so long? He said, well, he was fighting me. And I was just like, he's been doing that to me, but why would he do that to you? You haven't been around. Another thing clinked in my head. I was like, maybe don't assume. Later on that day, my son, once again, used the restroom, and I didn't want him sitting in it. I was back to feeding my youngest. I went to go hand him to his father, and he flips out. I'm talking about one hand grabbed onto his father's hair, and he was screaming, he was kicking, he was crying, spazzing. I'm looking like, that's not right. What the And I was like, it's okay, baby. Mommy will change you. So I pull him away from his father. Of course, he's still agitated. He calms down enough for me to pull him next to him. And I literally, baby daddy, ran the back of me, beelines for the front door, right? Where my dad is. If you're helping them unpack, why are you by the front door? My son, like I said, nonverbal. I was waiting for him to give me a cue on what's going on. So I started asking questions. Why won't you let mommy take off your diaper? What's wrong? Why won't you let me take off your diaper? Every few seconds he would look at me, make eye contact, but he was locked. And I'm talking about locked on his father. Every time Sean made a move, Nazi was paying attention. And I kept asking him, and every time I would ask him, he would look at me and then directly back at his father. And in that moment, something wasn't right. And I didn't call the cops because I felt like they were going to treat me like I was crazy because I was making assumptions my son was nonverbal. Right? Correct. So I'm like, okay, what the fuck? I'm like staring at him like, what is going on? So my recent partner, he turned around, let's take him to the bathroom and see if he'll let us change his diaper. Walk into the bathroom, less than a couple seconds, he is literally taking his diaper off on his own. Of course, he's still visibly agitated. I forgot the wipes, so I walk out the bathroom, and he turns around, and he's like, speed talking to my dad and trying to race out the door. He's like, fumbling, right? And then I turn around, and I'm like, okay, I don't give a fuck about that. I need to go check on my baby. There's a handprint on its crotch, by the way. Of course, I didn't record any of this because I was so focused on what is wrong with my child that I didn't think about collecting evidence. I was in fight or flight mode, okay? And then when his father left, by the way, he literally left less than 5 minutes after that because he kept telling my daddy he had something to do, even though he told my dad he previously had nothing to do. My son returned back to being his usual self. He was not tense. He wasn't avoidant. None of that. Now, this puts everything back into focus. A year ago, I started having issues with my son changing his diaper. I used to wear really long, pointy acrylic nails, and I thought I had poked him or pinched him or jabbed him in something. Because at one point I accidentally poked him in his thigh. He don't take really nice to pain. He get really upset. He gets, when I mean upset, I mean aggressive upset. He will hit you upset. So I was like, okay, after mommy gets his set, I'll get, shorter ones. And then it just turned into a pattern that every single time his father came around, and by the way, I didn't piece these together because I blamed myself. But now that I'm thinking about it, every time his father would babysit him, my son would it would become even harder for me to change his diaper. It was the same reaction. Every time I would try to wipe his butt, he would clench. And And I'm not talking about like oh, that hurt. I'm talking about as soon as he saw the wipes and I would finally be able to take his diaper off, he was clenched. Like he refused to let me wipe. And it took months of me telling him step by step what mommy's doing. Because once again, like I said, I blamed myself because I thought I had done something to hurt him unintentionally. But none of this process until that day when I was just like, this is the same behavior from last year, and this is what would happen every time you would watch him. And of course, me being in absolute denial, I didn't want to, I was like, no, it's mommy's fault. Because I watch him 24/7. So, like, I had to do something, I had to do something that made him uncomfortable. Well, my dream told me different. And of course, again, I was in denial because he would never do that to his child. But after June, when he disappeared, like I said, it took me months, 6 to 8 months to get my son back to being relaxed enough for me to change his diaper without incident. And then the behavior started right back up after his father. I'm not a therapist or a psychologist, but putting all of that together, literally, in my mind, and as a person who's been sexually assaulted as a child before by a family member, it started to make sense on why the behavior would get worse when his father was around. And I looked, like I said, once again, I blamed myself. I really thought mommy had done something to make him uncomfortable because I was basically the primary caretaker. And I had pointed out to one of my friends beforehand, I'm like, I find it really weird, but what could be happening? Is he wiping him too hard? Once again, my innocent mind, me thinking he would never do something to him. Is he wiping him too hard? What's going on? There was never any physical damage, so I could never see, there was never anything to see for me to know that something was happening. Until I had that dream. And even then I was like, there's no way. And now, like, since that day, I've literally told him, you can't come near my kids. Because I believe from all of that and my prior experience for being sexually assaulted, that he was, in fact, sexually assaulted by his father. I'm sorry that this is so long, but I wanted to provide every ounce of detail I possibly could. Even on that night, he was clenched. Cinched. It literally took us a couple minutes to get him wiped, because he was freaking out still. There's no way in the world this man can look me in my face and tell me he didn't do nothing to my baby. And I will never believe him that he didn't do nothing to my baby. Sorry for the long video, and thank you for listening. I also want to provide a little bit tad bit. After that day, my son has been doing this. And I have no idea where he got it from, because I've never done that sign in front of him. I haven't done that since I was like in my early 20s. And he constantly keeps doing this. And in my, because like there's no reason for him to do this over and over again. And I wanted to point that out and how I found that weird also.